Hello, my name is James Kennedy, and this is my individual final project presentation thing for CIT 260. My group member for the semester was Mallory, and then also myself. All right, so different aspects of the City of Erin program that we worked on throughout the semester. This semester we learned about static and non-static variables. Static variables are ones that don't need to be altered by the program or by the user. Non-static variables or instanced variables can be altered in this way, or are meant to be altered in this way. An example here, we have the crop view class. The user does not need to mess with how crop view works. Hence, all of the aspects of crop view are static. Crop data, by the very nature of its class and what it's supposed to do, that being keeping track of all of the various data variables associated with the game, the crop specifically, it's going to be fluctuating. The number of wheat eaten by rats, for instance, is going to go up and down, varying on the turn and circumstances thereof. The year will perpetually increase, things like this. This is an example of a static function, which we will discuss in further detail a little bit later. But here it is a static function, which purpose is to buy land, the user interface aspect of it at least. All right, now we have arrays and array lists. On the left here we have right here a standard array. You can tell because there are brackets here. This is a two-dimensional array of locations for the map. And over here we also have the further implementation of the array, how it works, and we can see that here in the constructor that the locations is a two-dimensional array of rows and columns. An array list is different from an array in that it is a dynamic container of simple variables. Here we have an array list of list items, which has an amount and description of animals, tools, and provisions. Now, the difference between an array and an array list is that an array is functionally static. It has a given capacity at its initialization, and an array list is dynamic, meaning that the size of it can grow or shrink according to the needs of the user or the program. The reason that the animals, tools, and provisions are array lists is that we don't know what the user is going to do, how many animals they're going to input, how many tools they have, what different provisions they occur. It's just easier to have a dynamic amount here. Whereas with locations, we know that the map is of a fixed size, so we can use a fixed container, being a two-dimensional array, to manage that. To display the map, we use a nested for loop. Now, a for loop example can be found right here with the keyword for, a int variable right here, which we will refer to as an iterator, which iterates through to the maximum amount allowed by the program. In this case, it's 5, and then it iterates. So it's basically a governing function to go through a list. So the way it works is you have your variable, it's 0. If this number right here is less than some external condition, then increase, and then execute the code inside the brackets. So for instance, if all of these parameters are met, then the map, then if the map location at that particular row and column is empty, then the program will print out 3 dots. If it is not empty, then it will print the symbol associated with the location. And then if these parameters are not met, then it iterates here and goes through this for loop, and which will then return to this for loop. I keep clicking for some reason, which will then return to this for loop and print out the next column. A nested for loop is a very good way of looping through a two-dimensional array. All right, here we have the function, the static function from earlier in the presentation, by land view. And here we have in place some error catching methods. We have a try statement, which encapsulates this section of code, a throw statement right here, and a catch statement here, all inside of a do-while loop. What we care about is the error handling here. So the try-catch statement in this particular instance is not necessarily important to the code, but it could be. For instance, if the user input a amount of land which was less than the amount of land that they could afford, you could throw an exception. Anyway, the way that it works is if the amount of land that the user wants to buy is equal to 1,492, the program will throw an exception called Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And if this is thrown, the code jumps, whoops, I clicked again, to catch, which will print out, I'm sorry, I can't do that, and then the message included here, and then set the condition to true, which will end the do while loop. So for instance, if we wanted to put more error handling in here, we could have if 2 buy is equal to 0, we could throw an exception which says you cannot buy 0 land. Or if 2 buy is equal to more than what the user can afford, you cannot afford that, for instance. All right, here's a couple of examples of code that I wrote last week, actually, for the very last individual assignment. I chose option, I believe, 6, which was to write some code which would punish the user for not making any offerings in a given day or year, or what have you. So I have a governing function here called cataclysm, which is just as fun as it sounds. In essence, if the user offering is 0 at the end of a day, a major cataclysm, whoops, I clicked again, will occur. And print out the message, you should have made an offering. And if they make a offering which is less than 10% of their harvest, they get a minor cataclysm. So, in other words, it is an extreme example of the law of tithing. Now, what are major and minor cataclysms? Well, a minor cataclysm, starting at the bottom, will choose randomly between 2 options. A plague of locusts destroys your harvest, or a minor plague, which, well, it's a plague. It kills some people. And, yeah, that number is no more than 25. So you basically lose some of your population. And here we have some, in case for some reason the random number generator screws up, if the random number is not equal to 0 or 1, then we get an error. Now, major cataclysms are a little more complicated. We have a random number generator here again to choose between 2 different scenarios. If the random number generator chooses 0, then raiders will come and steal a random amount of land and kill a random amount of people. So, to do that, another random number generator will choose between 0 and the maximum amount of land that you have, a number, and that land is no longer yours. And then the same thing for population. A major plague happens in the instance that the random number generator chooses 1, a plague of locusts will swarm the land, eat the harvest, some of your stores, and eat some of your people. These are some really hardcore locusts, basically. Some real let my people go Moses Egyptian kind of stuff. And this is all handled down here in the same manner as it is up here, referencing the crop data variable controlled by the game. All right, now I'm going to show a live demo of the game in action. Pardon the Warcraft-related background, please. All right, here we have the governing class, City of Aaron, which is very simple, and we have all of this stuff over here. I'm sure you all have seen that before. We're going to run the program. I'm just going to output down here. And there we go. Please enter an option 1 to 5. Start a new game, again, start a saved game, get help on playing the game, etc., etc. Let's do start a new game. All right, cool. Please type in your first name. I always use a for online games that require a name. I usually use the cast of Full House. Let's go with John Stamos. Excellent. So let's go to the map. Let's choose that option. And see that the view map option was selected, and it outprints a map right here. Now we're back to the map. Let's go to the list menu. And now let's go and view a list of animals. All right, cows, horses, pigs, and it looks like Mallory had a debugging word called loop to show the different iterations. We can rub that out a little bit later. Let's show a list of tools. Doesn't look like we actually have any tools at the moment. And let's return to the game menu. Oh, look at that. We found an error. Let's go to the help option this time. Yeah. Well, it appears to all be working. We just need to flesh it out a little bit more. Anyway, that's my presentation. Thank you all for watching. And good luck on finals and all that stuff.